Hello everybody, my name is Lynn Knorr. We gather here today at the Joseph Allison Chapel to honour a very special life, the life of Barb Smith, the life of a woman who meant much to each of you. We're going to celebrate Barb's life as she would have wished, with good talk, good humour and good cheer. At the conclusion of our service, you're invited to stay on at Joseph Allison for refreshments and later to join Barb's family at Tony and Helen's home, 54 Robb Street in Essendon. If you would like to make a donation in Barb's memory to the Royal Children's Hospital Foundation, you'll find envelopes with the Joseph Allison staff members. You can post them off yourself or give them to a family member. Please make sure you sign the memorial book before you leave today. It's a very important memento for the family. And just a reminder, if anybody has forgotten to turn off their mobile phone, will they please do so now. Thank you. There is so much to say about Barb, and it's not easy to say goodbye to her, but nothing can now detract from the closeness that you shared with her, from the special times that you'll recall with warmth and joy. What has been forever. The past, with all its meanings, is sacred and secure. Your love for Barb and her love for you cannot now ever be altered by time or circumstance. I know that you're grateful for that. Barb died last Friday, gently, surrounded by family members who had so lovingly cared for her during this last period of her life. She lived for 86 years, years that encompassed extraordinary achievements for humanity. Every privilege, every advantage, every enlightenment that we enjoy today, we owe to the ideals, the vision, patience, dedication, and not infrequently even sacrifice of mainly unsung people like Barb. We derive from them our very life, our health, our history, our culture, and our future. Most of you have known Barb Smith for many years, as her family, as friends of her family, through her working life. You know about her caring nature, her friendliness, her cheerfulness, her determination, her strength. You know that the values that she imparted to her family and friends, the fundamental values of fairness and honesty, are the most important ingredients in our society. These few words today cannot possibly encompass all that Barb's life has meant to her children, Tony, Chris and John, daughters-in-law, Tony's wife Helen. Helen can't be with us today. Helen's father has just passed away and she is in England with her mother. Chris's wife Mook, Joanne and John's wife Sonia, her precious grandchildren, Hannah, Becky and her partner Daniel, Robbie, Samantha, Alex, Georgie, Anna, Charlie and Stephen. Her sister Joyce and other extended family members, her good friends, Audrey and John Pavlich, and her other friends from nursing days, her neighbour Steffi, her home helpers Sue and Jenny, and other treasured friends. Rather, they will emphasise some aspects of Barb's life that will keep her alive in your hearts. And no celebration of Barb's life can pass without mention of her four-legged friends, Peppy, her little dog, and Mouse the cat who passed last year and whose ashes go with her today, along with a flower from every part of her garden, her radio tuned to 3AW, Monday's Herald Sun, her Liberal Party badge, and a photo of Mouse and Peppy. Mouse and Peppy were both very important members of Barb's family. On Monday, Tony, John and Chris talked with me about Barb's life, the highlights and the challenges. They told me of their feelings of love and delight, of pride, of deep sorrow. And as they spoke, their sadness subsided a little, and they were telling me of their love for the woman who's had such an impact on their lives. It was a warm and affectionate tribute to a woman who is obviously much loved and admired by her family. Perhaps joyous would be a better word. They treasure the memory of this exceptional woman. Barb's sons have spent the last few days preparing tributes to their mother, and we're going to hear from them now. First, Chris, you all coming up?
Got your hankies ready? Here we go. Here goes. Eleanor Barbara Catto, or just Barb as she wished we all knew her by, was born in Riola on the 30th of October 1926. She was a country kid where life was one of horses, freedom and an overwhelming bond with her father, and a rich and full childhood with her elder sister Joyce and young brother Graham. She often fascinated me with the stories of her time in the Central Rural School of Riola, and we have some of her classmates here today as well. Joyce, Barb and Graham had a wonderful childhood as bush kids, always involved with every kind of animal and not needing dolls or toys, and above all they had their horses. Mum's favourite memory of that time was with her, when her father was with her, whistling Springtime in the Rockies, when things got a little tough. It was just this last week she recalled that memory and hummed me the tune, as she again told me how much she missed her father and how much that song meant to her. From when she was a small toddler, he would take her on his horse and bring in the sheep, until she could ride her own pony. She was his shadow. But as she told me, her day really started after school, having to hammer together a quota of apple boxes before her father would let her onto the horse and bolt off into the bush and up into the granites. This was the period in which she developed her love for life, the earth and adventure. As the Depression eased and then the Great Drought hit, she supported her father in carting water, feeding pigs, growing up as quickly as country kids do. She recently recalled, Dad had told me many times, broaden your outlook and get out and see the world. The war years brought much change as the young men went to fight. Barb, along with so many young women, worked as part of the Land Army to continue with the rigorous life of harvest and farming. It was not uncommon for her to saddle up a team of 5 draft horses and then plough the field, plough the paddocks, harvest grain and bring in the hay. There's a beautiful photograph in her hallway that shows her having finished shooting 35 rabbits just as part of her relaxation time. In 1940, Mum showed her ongoing sporting prowess, and with the encouragement of her father and some bush coaching from one of the boys on the farm, Paul, she competed in the Victorian State School Amateur Athletics Championship at Princes Park, Carlton. With Joyce taking time off from Presbyterian Ladies College to watch Barb run, in only tennis shoes, although we were told by her it was in bare feet, she romped home in the 80-yard sprint, winning with a clear 4 feet lead, and I'm told she slipped at the start. It was a record time to which this day is still unbeaten. Mum was later approached to train for the Olympic Games, but was involved with her nursing instead. Her proud father, when interviewed by the press on Barb's achievements, was asked about the secret of how she had trained. Grandpa Riley advised that Barb had learnt to run in the bush with the kangaroos, prompting a letter of congratulations from the Premier of Victoria, Sir Albert Dunstan, at the time. In 1941, Barb was brought to Melbourne to stay with the Coopers, her cousins, here today. In Kew, she attended PLC, where she excelled in sport. She also spent much time in the farm helping at the war effort and coping with a severe drought. Together with her father, she helped keep animals alive, slaughtering sheep to keep the more valuable pigs alive. It was a time when Mum's natural beauty was behind many broken hearts at the local country dances. Auntie Barb Simpson was instrumental in convincing Barb's father to allow her to nurse and so begin a lifelong career of passion and dedication. Despite her limited bush education, she entered the Royal Children's Hospital, then located in Carlton. She worked hard and passed all her exams, graduating in 1948 with a group of 9 others who in turn became lifelong friends, meeting regularly over the last 65 years. Some of those group members, Audrey Boult, now Pavlich, Margaret Mitchell Hoskins, Mark Walsh, Judy Reid are here today. Unfortunately, Valerie Lark, Marion Shears and June Healy can't make it. Meeting as inseparable buddies, and with the passing of time, that group of remarkable ladies shared a lifetime of each other's joy and tragedies. It's okay, I'm told to rest. Just breathe in, suck it in. Few of them remain today. Mum worked on the wards of Orthopaedic Hospital when both TB and polio were prominent. One of her proudest achievements was in 1948, being crowned the Queen of Children's Hospital, having raised over £1,000 to help build the new Parkville Hospital, which in turn has now been rebuilt. She qualified in midwifery and obstetrics at the Royal Women's Hospital in 1949. In 1951, Mum embarked on what was to become a life-changing journey overseas, travelling to England on the SS Orchides, spending time in Ceylon, Port Said, through the Suez Canal, Marseille, and through to Tilbury. And, She worked in London, where she met and fell in love with Ted, our father. 2 years of working and adventure followed, visiting relatives in Scotland, hitchhiking in Ireland, skiing in Norway, and living on the left bank of Paris. Mum qualified in sick children nursing in London in 1951. Mum then, with 6 other nurses, Australian nurses, decided to tour Europe by car. Only Mum was knowing how to drive. They purchased Matilda, a 1926 Daimler, for £20. Ted, our father, offered to fix this old broken down car up on the belief that it would never get passed over without breaking down. It went on, however, to tour war-scar Europe, France, Belgium, Italy, Switzerland, and return relatively unscathed to England. It was a time of much hilarity for the girls, of whom only Barbara had a basic understanding of things mechanical. There had been no tractors on her farm, only draft horses. On arriving in France, straight off the ferry, the front wheel fell off. Not daunted, they headed off through the Alps to Switzerland, negotiating precarious mountain roads, as that was the straightest line on the map at the time. The girls had a proven method for securing roadside help and free meals, was to have Mum push a beautiful face through the window and smile. Mum and that group saw the Vatican and even received a blessing from Pope Pius XII. She carried this blessed St. Christopher amulet all her life, and it is from this amulet that I was named. When the girls finally returned to London, they sold Matilda for exactly £20. Mum returned to Melbourne about September 1952, where she spent time nursing Auntie Barbara during one of the Catto family's saddest times. Mum had a youth that was lived to the maximum in the bush, with her family, in sport, in love, in nursing people who loved her, with her pets. She put into life everything of value and energy that has created a world which loved her in return. Thanks, Tony.
Just want to thank you all very much for being here, all of you individually, very much. Barbara and Ted were married in August of 1953 at St Andrew's Church in Bendigo after a whirlwind romance. Their early days held great hope and promise, as for everyone living at that time. They had first lived in a small flat in St Kilda Road before moving to Brunswick, where first I arrived in 1954, then 2 years later Chris. Living in Brunswick at that time was a little like a country town. All the neighbours knew each other well and their lives intertwined. Our family was fortunate enough to have the first television in the street. I can well remember Mum and Dad in the evening watching the black and white flickering images. Except it was set up in the backyard and we watched along with 20 or 30 neighbours sitting on the lawn and was perched on the back fence. John joined us in 1964, a source of great joy to our parents. Mum really never got over, however, the loss of a full-term stillborn daughter who would have come between Chris and John. She was still grieving even a few months before she passed away. In 1967, one of Dad's English brothers enticed the family to move to the UK to pursue a joint business opportunity. Mum embraced the challenges involved and we all shifted. Life in the UK was a roller coaster, but it was Mum who kept us all together. She continued nursing, initially in the premature baby unit at our local hospital in Essex, and after a few years she started up a nursery school for preschoolers within our house. We'd have 12 to 20 children every day. Mum would mix up Play-Doh at nights, prepare lots of pasta, and play nursery rhymes on the piano to the masses of fresh-faced, lively children. She became bound up in the community that she'd created. Every child and every parent was an individual, and she knew every story. But Australia beckoned. In 1971, Mum journeyed back with our brother John to visit her beloved father, Jock. He was still on the family farm in Riola in central Victoria, but had been unwell. The following year, her father died, a crushing time for Mum, who could not be there to farewell him. He remained an icon to her for the rest of her life. 2 years later, in 1974, most of the family returned to Australia. Life in the UK was hard then, with general strikes, power blackouts, and massive unemployment, perhaps not so different from now. I was left behind, having just then started my medical studies in London. The family returned initially to Ballarat and then to Melbourne. Mum continued nursing. She commenced work at Lonson in Windsor, a private psychiatric hospital. But as the hospital evolved into a unit for the care of the psychiatrically disturbed youth, she took up what became for her another passion. Each of these kids was special, and her involvement with the unit was intense. Whatever the doctors contributed to the care of these kids, I have no doubt, was equally matched by that of my mother. She was a fierce supporter of these troubled kids. One of her many gifts had been the ability to communicate with the young. She remained a youthful girl at heart through all of her life, even as in later years an ageing body took its toll and slowed her down. Through this time, her boys were growing up. Chris had thrown his whole body and soul into the Air Force, leaving home in 1976 to sign up, but Mum's connection remained. The RAAF hosted then, and possibly still now, trainees from Papua New Guinea. And Chris befriended these young men, bringing them back to the family house in Glen Waverley at weekends. Mum had a new and very different set of adoptive sons. The country connection continued with close ties to our cousins who remained on the land. John regularly travelled up there to central Victoria, staying with Mum's older sister Joyce on the farm there. And this was pivotally important to Mum. Joyce, we're lucky to say, is here with us today. In 1982, Mum came to London to be with Helen and myself for our wedding. It was a very happy occasion for us. She brought Joyce and an Australian contingent that actually outnumbered the locals. At the time, I had a small two-seater open-top MG sports car. Mum and Joyce would squeeze in with one in the passenger seat and one in the dicky space sort of behind. We zipped around rural England sightseeing. I just hope nobody bounced out the back. By 1983, John had finished school and went on a gap year before commencing teacher training at Rusden. Mum was fiercely proud of all her boys, to the point of our extreme embarrassment. Our parents gave everything to the children, for which we are eternally grateful. Their legacy lies a hope in the opportunities we've been able to offer our children, their grandchildren. That being said, and however, our parents' relationship was a turbulent one of the years, with good times and not so good. The cumulative stresses steadily wore it down. In 1983, with the boys having moved on, our parents separated, ultimately divorcing in 1989. Although this was a dark time for our mother Barbara, it was also the start of a new and exciting phase of her life.
Eleanor Barbara Smith loved life. Mum loved to travel. From her early days as a single girl to her 50s, 60s and 70s, Mum made the most of her opportunities, particularly when free from the commitment and dedication of raising 3 sons. During my McDonald's days, I was lucky to have travelled to Thailand and Nepal. During this trip with Mum, we watched bullfighting in Koh Samui, visited the nightclubs of Bangkok, boasting a diverse range of entertainment, walked through the mountains of Nepal to watch sunset over Mount Everest, and trekked through the Golden Triangle in the north of Thailand. Through her love of travelling, Mum was able to visit Tony and Helen for Becky's birth in Calgary, and was to see Chris in Thailand to meet Mook for the first time. Mum loved Australia, from fishing for barramundi in the north to scuba diving on the Barrier Reef. Without fail, Mum would always meet backpackers on her travels, and within a few short months they would be staying at a house in Essendon. There were never any complaints from the boys, as we well remember when Mum invited 2 Swedish girls to stay with her.
That's very good.
How could you ever forget them doing the Zorba dance at a Greek wedding? We will always thank Mum for this. Mum loved her pets. They were always an important part of her life. Over the last 15 years, Mouse the cat, Peppy the dog were her life. More recently, Mo joined the family. Mum was not interested in talking to you unless the cat had been fed and the dog. Freshly cooked rice and meat for the Peppy, the dog, and the best in whiskers for Mouse. Sadly, Mouse, as Lynn mentioned, passed away last year, and as requested by Mum, Mouse's ashes are with you today. Even though Peppy is still with us, Mum had asked for Peppy's remains to be put in with her. As a family, we've chatted to Peppy, who is understandably having second thoughts with this concept. To add further complication to your wishes, Mum, there is a distinct lack of volunteers to take Peppy down to the vet and put him in with you today. Don't worry, Mum. Stephen, my son, is going to look after Peppy until he is ready to join you. Mum loved her daughters-in-law. In 1997, she had a heart attack, amongst other scares. But Mum survived these to tell another tale. However, I'll always remember one of her dying wishes at one of those scares, when she looked me in the eye and told me that I was to marry that girl Sonia as soon as possible. Fulfilling Mum's wishes, we were soon married, and 9 months later, Stephen was born. Once the wedding date was set, Mum was fit as a bloody fiddle. Go figure. Mum loved gardening. She spent many weekends helping me with my Mount Eliza garden and Tony and Helen with their garden. And finally, her beautiful garden at 16 Robb Street. Mum was a skilled and natural gardener. I guess these skills were attained through growing up on a farm and endlessly listening to garden shows on 3AW. Mum loved to make cakes. How could you forget at grandchildren's birthday parties, Bob the Builder, Carlton Football Club, and robot cakes? Mum loved making friends. Steffi and Zuram the neighbours, Tony the newsagent, Tom the mechanic, Sue and Jenny her home helpers, Tracy from the $2 shop, and Lisa and Paul from McDonald's all had a place in her heart. In her final years, Mum developed a special relationship with Ing, Leo and Angie. Mum loved her nursing buddies. On a regular basis, they would get together to talk about the old times, the tough times and good times, as Chris mentioned before. Mum loved her TV shows. We soon learnt not to ring between 4:30 and 5 p.m. This was when Bold and the Beautiful was on. And as you all know, you can never miss an episode because you might just miss something. Not. Mum loved her talkback shows. 3AW was on all day on full volume. Neil in the mornings, Dennis and Darren in the afternoons, Bruce and Phil in the evenings, and Keith and Alan through the night. Mum always wondered why we didn't take up her offer